Knowledge for Men, episode 39.
Welcome to KnowledgeForMen.com, where boys turn into men, where men turn into leaders, into lions, the ferocious few who stand strong, a place where you grow to become the man you were born to be. It's time to take massive action towards the life you want. Get the health, get the relationships, business, and career you've always dreamed of. Achieve a level of success and happiness that you've been searching for so many years. Life has given you enough, and it's time to take a stand and take full control of your life. Stand with us as we interview the most inspiring and successful leaders to give you real-world advice to crush life and awaken the sleeping giant inside of you. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download today at kfmbook.com. There's over 100,000 titles to choose from for your smartphone, tablet, or computer. It's a perfect way to listen to your favorite books in the car, in the gym, or at home. Check out kfmbook.com to start learning in your downtime.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Scott Dinsmore, the founder of liveyourlegend.net. He's an adventurous, an entrepreneur, an explorer, an experimenter, and TEDx speaker. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that TEDx speaking. He has a TED Talk with over 1 million views titled How to Find and Do Work You Love. And this video in particular had a significant impact on me in quitting my job and building knowledge for men, and then eventually leading up into this podcast. So I won't say that because of Scott I am where I am, but I will say that he did have an influence on where I am. And so to get him on the show, this is a little emotional, and I feel it's just so insane that he's on the show, and I've watched his video like 50 times. I remember specifically the day I quit my job. I was listening to this TED Talk in my car, How to Find and Do Work You Love. Just Google it, you'll find it on YouTube. And I listened to it on my way to work, and then I parked my car, and then I listened to it again. So I was just sitting there for like 45 minutes in the parking lot just listening to this video, and I can't tell you, I just walked right into my job and I quit. And just like that, everything had changed. It was a huge, huge leap of faith just to go in and quit like that. I didn't have a business. Knowledge for Men was nothing. The website was just ridiculous looking. There wasn't really any content on it. I had no idea that this was going to play out the way that it did, but I did it. I made that move, made that leap, and yeah, so I'm here with Scott Dinsmore. I reached out to him, and I just told him briefly before we started that, I was like, hey man, your video just had such a huge impact on me, and I quit my job, and I started this website, and then started this podcast, and now you're on it. How's that? So Scott, I'm happy to have you on this show. I really am.
Oh, Andrew, it's a pleasure, man. This is fun. I've heard you guys have been going crazy with your audience, so this is an honor.
Hey, thanks. I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. I feel like I'm really making an impact. So thanks for what you've done too and what you're doing. So without further ado, let's jump in. Scott, what's one of your most influential success quotes? And if you could explain why.
Awesome. Well, the first one that always comes to mind is Jim Rohn, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And for me, I think that is the biggest life hack in the history of the world, really. I mean, the fastest way to do the things you don't think can be done are to hang around the people already doing them. And it's like if you want to run a marathon, lose 50 pounds, meet a new, your husband or wife, or start a business, quit your job, all of it comes down to the people you spend time around. And so that is something we focus on so much personally, but also at Live Your Legend, is that, as it turns out, there's a lot of people who don't like the work they do, and it's something like 80%. And so that means for the most part, our surroundings are toxic, and people are uninspiring and pulling us down, maybe talking down to our ideas, whatever it may be. And if we hear that enough, we'll give up or never start in the first place. So the huge first step is to make that transition to inspiring surroundings. So that it takes some time and definitely some work, but at least it's a pretty simple thing. And it can change everything.
I think that's so true. I mean, just even in my own personal life, just you change your environment, you change who you hang out with, and you change everything. You hang out with entrepreneurs, you're going to think like an entrepreneur. You're going to start making more money. You're going to start taking more risk and just going after those opportunities. If you hang out with people who work out all the time, you're going to start eating healthier as a byproduct of that. If you hang out with people who party, who go out on the weekends, you're going to be doing that too. Not to say that's bad, but just saying who you hang out with is who you become, and it's just so powerful.
Yeah, I call it brainwashing possibility. It shows you what can be done. If we get into kind of how things got built at Live Your Legend later, I'll explain how that was the everything for why things came to be. But I use it for all kinds of things. I ran a big race last year, and I'm not much of a huge runner, but it was a challenge a buddy of mine and I were into, and so we signed up for a running club, and we would run like 20% faster just by being at the club. And not because they were yelling at us or telling us to run faster, just because you adapt and naturally adapt. And there's actually a term for it. It's called social facilitation. And Norman Triplett first did a study on it in 1898 with cyclists and just found that cyclists always cycled faster in groups than when they were by themselves. And as it turns out, like that's the case really no matter what area you're studying of human performance.
And you just mentioned that this played a huge role in the development of Live Your Legend. So this would be a great segue to go right into your story, go into your journey of how you got started with what you do. And I know this is just short, we just got a podcast episode here, but just, the short version.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'll try and give the very abridged version. It's a big question. So I remember when I graduated college, I couldn't find a job. I tried very hard. I did really well in college. I was like, high honors, all this stuff. And despite all that, I got turned down from everything I tried to get and ended up going on a trip around the world, around Europe with a friend for 6 weeks. And then it turned into actually a full year. Since we didn't have jobs lined up, and I studied abroad in Sevilla, Spain when I was in university. And I had friends and some Spanish family back there. And so we stopped and said hi to them and kind of found this opportunity to be tour guides and also to start a little English teaching business for businessmen. And we said, why not? Like, let's just stick around. And so we stayed for the year. And being in Spain for that long, it really brainwashes kind of your thinking, in that it's not in the Western, at least where I've grown up and in California and in kind of the standard school system and societal system, you get kind of taught that it's about the status and about money and kind of there's only one path and it's that path. And in Spain, it was so different. It was about community. It was about family. And yeah, they didn't have a lot of money, but they really enjoyed who they were with and they knew their priorities, and it was really refreshing. And so I came back thinking I would do something big and different. And I quickly, though, when I got back to the US, fell into the same thinking I had in the past from my, past mentors and things saying, oh, Scott, go get a good job at a big company and a good training program. And I ended up just kind of out of fear, kind of just going that route. And I found a big like global company in their international division, like doing something that I thought sounded cool, and it ended up being absolutely awful. And it was like I was just pounding my head against the keyboard. Like it was total monkey work. It took me like 2 hours a day, and then I had to act busy the rest of the time, which is a really terrible skill to build, is how to act busy. Not really do much, but like screw off and all. It's not healthy for anybody. And I realized that, and that was right about when I heard the quote from Warren Buffett that taking a job to build your resume is like saving up sex for old age. And it just like really just distilled it down. And so I remember quitting very soon after that, after 7 months. And I just said, this is not good for me. It's not good for the company. There must be something better. And I set out to find something I could screw up. That was how I put it. And because I so badly wanted to have an impact. And I started to do more and more work on kind of myself, reading books, hired career coaches and things. And just, I noticed soon after that the statistic that like something like 80% of people don't like the work they do. And I wanted to understand why. What do the 20% have in common? What are they doing that everyone else seems to be getting wrong? And just how to like avoid that. And so over time, I made a lot of discoveries about myself and ended up finding a really fun group of people to work with on a preventive healthcare company that a friend of mine had started a couple years prior. And it ended up being my first experience with really passionate work. But during that, more and more friends started to notice that I was really into this whole career topic and kind of being intentional about how you spend your time. And they'd ask me to have lunch with them. And it got to the point where I loved doing it. And I got to the point where I'd have to warn them because my quit rate was 80%. Of the people who would have lunch with me, 80% would quit their job to pursue something else. And I was really proud of that. It wasn't that I had anything special really that I was doing. I was just asking them, why are you doing what you're doing? And most of the time they'd say, well, because I'm supposed to. And when someone answers with the words, because I'm supposed to something, that really causes them to reflect and be like, wait a minute, that wasn't good. And it caused them to step back a bit. And like once people start asking those big questions to themselves, it gets pretty hard to ignore it. That life is short, that you want to make a difference and be remembered for something and kind of apply who you are to the world and help people. So over time, that grew into Live Your Legend. But what was interesting is I started just writing articles just on a site, a blog. And for 4 years, it grew by 0%. And there's no one was paying attention. It was like my wife, my parents, and like a few friends. I had like 115 followers, but most were just buddies who weren't really paying attention. And after 4 years, I was going to shut it down. And then right around that time, I moved to San Francisco and met this amazing group of people that were doing stuff I just didn't think was possible. They had these awesome businesses that levered technology and the internet and their talents and passions in a way that helped people in a meaningful way and also provided this great lifestyle. I mean, one of the guys I met at a family of 8 and he supported just with his blog, and they'd, do month trips to Italy and stuff. And I was so blown away by this. It just got me unbelievably inspired. And so instead of shutting down what I was working on, I said, okay, if these people are doing it, I think I see a path here. And this wasn't just in person. It was also online. I started to see these different communities and things that people were building. And so I just went to work, and I remember trying to surround myself with them as much as possible. We had double dates, workouts, Skype sessions, beers, whatever it was. And within 6 months of meeting those people, our site and community at Live Your Legend grew by 10 times. And then within another 12 months, it grew by like 160 times. And to where there were people from every country in the world, 100,000 or so of them every month using our career and connection tools. And it's wild to think that for 4 years, nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, it just went vertical. And the simple thing that happened was that for 4 years, I knew nobody. I didn't know this stuff could be done. And so there's no reason for me to really go after it and attempt it. But all of a sudden, it was everywhere. And my thinking went from how could I possibly do this to how could I possibly not? And when that happens, that ripples across your world. Like, it just smashes your beliefs in an unbelievable way and kind of just, it expands them like you wouldn't imagine. And so that's where this whole you are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with I've just realized is the key to really any type of personal transformation or business transformation or whatever. So that's brought us really to where we are today and now have Live Your Legend with its communities around the world. And we have courses and different tools and things like that. But most of the stuff is free and just trying to make people be more intentional and surround them with the people who make that stuff possible.
Right. And to point out, you were working a job you weren't passionate about, but the key thing that differentiates you from so many others is you acknowledge that this isn't what you wanted and you did something about it. You said, no, I'm going to change. And you went out and surrounded yourself with people who had the results that you wanted. And that just gave you that push, that inspiration to know that this is achievable. And if these people are doing it, then I can do it.
So yeah, that's the beauty of it, is like, even if you don't know what to do or what's happening, like if you're just not happy with your environment or like with your life or what you're doing, the first most powerful step is to start to change the environment. Go to an event that's related to something that kind of excites you, or like join join a fitness group, or just start somewhere small. And often that could be the only thing you need, because like we bring people together now. We have like monthly meetups around the world, and really the only goal for those is to get people in the same room who believe in the same things. Because when you do that, you don't even need to provide them with any tools. They'll figure it out once people get inspired and believe that it can be done. And so that's like I see our biggest role at Live Your Legend, is to just inspire possibility and prove it to people. And of course, we'll provide the tools too. And there's plenty of tools out there is the thing. Like, people say they're not happy with their job. And a lot of people say they're not happy with their life. And often I'll ask them, like when I tell them what I do, a lot of people I meet at parties or wherever, they're like, oh my God, I need what you're offering. And I'm like, well, okay, well, have you ever read any of the books out there? Like the thousands of books on purpose, on career, on learning about yourself, whatever. And they're like, oh, no, I haven't. It's like, well, how much do you really care about doing something here? Because the tools are there, and sure, some tools are better than others, but pretty much any tool is better than sitting there spinning circles at your desk being frustrated. You have to realize this stuff is way more in your control than you think, which is the beauty of like the whole connections and surroundings thing, is that no one can tell you can't hang around certain people, and no one can tell you have to hang around the people who laugh at you and make fun of you for trying new things. It's like 100% in our control if you're willing to decide to control it.
And what really stood out to me is when your mind shifted from how could I do this to how could I not do this. That's a massive expansion of belief and mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where many people stumble, is they have these big goals and plans, but they don't believe they can actually do it.
Yeah, and the thing is that wasn't like, it wasn't even like some aha where it was like, it just hit me like one day and it's like, oh yeah, well, like how could I possibly not? My thinking just adapted to that. And it wasn't until I looked back on it, like after a year or two, and saw that was what happened. But you just adapt to that. And just hopefully what you're adapting to is at a level higher than where you are right now, as opposed to adapting to something further below, which is what happens for a lot of people.
And Scott, you've come so far with Live Your Legend. It's grown so much, but I know it hasn't been an easy path all along the way. Even with this newfound confidence and this peer support group who's been helping you along the way. Let's hear the tough stuff, the stuff that not too many people know about, and some of the challenges or big failure that set you back.
Yeah, well, God, there's definitely a few that come to mind. I mean,
you're like, which failure? Yeah, the one from last week?
Yeah, what? I could tell you one from last week, which was actually our biggest screw up we ever had, but I'll get there in a second. We for those 4 years where nothing was happening, that was definitely frustrating. Even though I should have expected it, because I wasn't like doing the right things or learning the right things. It was like, I don't know if anyone who's listening has ever been in a situation where you desperately, like you have something you desperately want to call a business and you want to like impact and help people with, but no one's paying attention and like it doesn't make any money. And that is like where a lot of people fall, because they have this idea, but then like nothing comes of it. And so that was frustrating for a long time. And I've since learned my expectations were really poor in that situation.
So 4 years is a really long time for blogging and not getting results. So what kept you going?
And that wasn't like a full-time project. Like that was like a side project. It's kind of like a hobby and messing around with it. And so that was part of it. Like I still loved, my measure of success clearly wasn't growth, because if that was the case, I would have given up super early, like numbers and things like that. But it was like, am I developing my ideas? Am I creating things that I can help people with? And so it was a nice, writing I found an unbelievable tool for self-discovery and for just learning, getting your ideas out there, and for showcasing how you can help people. I mean, that's why I think blogs have become so popular. Like they're just a tool for showcasing who you are and how you can help people. And there'll be probably a better tool for that in, let's say, 5 years or 10 years. Who knows? It probably won't be a blog, or maybe it won't be a podcast. Who knows? That's not the point. The point is figuring out like how you can offer some value to the world, and then using whatever tools are best for that. So I was more measuring on like, just am I producing things? Am I like sticking to the process of creating stuff and developing my ideas? And so that's why it was doable to stick with that for 4 years. And I was still, while it wasn't growing in the numeric sense, like with the different stats, I was meeting with people and getting good results. Like, I mean, that quit rate, I felt very proud of. People didn't just quit, but they pursued things they care a lot more about. And that was happening in the real world when I would sit with them over lunch and stuff. So that was unbelievable rewarding. That was awesome. That was that part of it. And then what can happen, there's one risk that happens with surrounding yourself with these people, is that it can be incredibly inspiring, but it also can be really humbling, because you can think like, oh my God, I have so far to go. I don't know what to do next. Or like, even if it's like, as I've grown things, like even like a year ago, I felt myself in that lull where things are growing like crazy, and we had the growth of the business and like the revenue and the community, everything was like I never would have imagined. But then it's like you immediately like either you adjust your expectations accidentally or not, without knowing it, subconsciously or whatever it is. But I started hanging around other folks who had done bigger things, and there's always people who have done bigger things. And instead of that being inspiration, for a little while I fell into a trap where it was like, oh my God, like I don't even have anything figured out here. Like, what am I doing? Like, these guys have all this stuff they're doing. And these are like good friends of mine. It wasn't like they were trying to like wave things in my face or whatever. I mean, I had a lot to be proud of, but it's just wild the things your mind can do to you if you're not careful. So with that, whenever that's happened, I've just noticed it's to maintain or keep to the process of really reflecting on what's happened and really what you're trying to do and what you care about building, which has nothing to do with what anyone else is building. And if you like are comparing to that, you're never really going to be happy. It's just going to be a total mess. And you're probably not going to make nearly as much progress either, because you won't be inspired and motivated. That took mainly me just getting back to kind of my roots of the vision I had, and then building upon that. And we started to put together a team. And when you get really confident and congruent with like applying who you are to like the way you want to help people and with what you're building, you stop caring about what other people are doing. I mean, you care about what they're working on because you care about them and you want to see them do well. But I mean, you don't care about it like I used to care about how my friends who had investment banking jobs made all this money. And I was like feeling like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? Look, they're making like 3 times what I'm making. But that was when I was so insecure about who I was, and I didn't have a clue about the way I wanted to spend my time. Well, now it's the opposite. Now I can't even imagine, living a life like that. But we won't get into the finance topic. But last thing that recently is a screw up, and this was the biggest one we've had. We had a big launch of a course this last week, and we actually had to delay it a week because of this. But it's our biggest launch and biggest thing for the community. We spend most of our time on this thing in terms of developing it and have a whole team behind it. And we had a big, like a live event we were doing as well, like for people. And it was like a live training online. And we had like almost 2,000 people signed up for it, which was double what we've ever had. And I had put, I don't know, dozens of hours into perfecting the whole presentation, the training and everything. And then when everyone got on, the technology just exploded. And like everyone just had to sit there and wait. And I couldn't even tell them that there was a problem, like, because my technology blew up too. So I could just see everyone sitting there. It was like I was locked into like a glass box that was soundproof. And I was like right before you were about to stand on the biggest stage of your life. And you get stuck behind the stage, like there's nothing you can do. And what's even worse is that no one could like mingle and like talk with each other. Everyone's by themselves around the world at this like online event. And so that happened for like 40 minutes. And then everyone just got cut out of it. And that was it. Like I had to like follow up afterwards and say, okay, sorry, we completely fumbled this. And I've never felt like more like hands tied than then. Like I was on the phone with support trying to sort it out. Nothing would work. And it was like 30 minutes, 35 minutes of total panic. Like, oh my God, there's so much on the line here, like reputation, wasting people's time, the revenue, all this stuff. And then I realized, okay, this isn't going to get fixed. And I remember like all of a sudden this kind of calm went over me, like, okay, this sucks, like totally sucks, but we can't do anything right now. So what do we do as a result? And I was pretty proud of how like the team and I kind of quickly shifted things to make good on whatever we could make good on. But I certainly have never felt that level of, oh my God, how is this happening to me? But as it turns out, everything, I don't know, I can't say everything was perfect as a result, but things worked out fine. And actually we owned up to it. I made a formal public apology to everyone in our community, even though only 2,000 people had signed up. I sent it out to all, 60, 70,000, just saying, listen, like, we're sorry, like, we screw things up and hopefully you'll forgive us. And as it turns out, a lot of people were grateful for that. And I think it even deepened the connection with our community because we owned up to it and didn't try and like brush it over as I probably would have done a few years ago when I was less secure about what the heck I'm doing.
Wow. Well, you handled it right, and I think you might even on this next go, get more than 2,000 people because of what happened, and this is going to turn out to even be like almost like a blessing or some sort of great learning experience for you and the community.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, if anything, if nothing else, it increased the connection between a number of our community members and just, I guess, me and what we're doing, which is a perfect example because the course was all about, and the live training was all about how to build genuine connections with people that can make all the difference. And so a huge portion of that is to show up and be who you are and to not puff your chest out and act like you're someone you're not, because people's BS meters are so finely tuned, they'll see right through it and you'll destroy any chance of a real genuine connection. And so it was funny that like it ended up being a living example, not on purpose, but we try to make the best of it.
Well, I mean, it is quite a failure. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I actually have an award that I'm going to be giving out to, I ask everyone the same question. And this one by far, I mean, this is the biggest failure that I've ever seen.
Awesome.
Yeah. And now moving on, I know that my audience would want this question answered. If I was going to have you on the show and you help people find the work that they love, what are some steps that you can give people to help them discover themselves and really find that work that they want to do, to find the work that matters to them?
Yeah, so we have tried to distill it down to like a super simple framework. I try to stick to stuff that's simple. I know this stuff isn't easy, but there's a big difference there. I mean, so there's 3 steps called the Passionate Work Framework. And the first step is self-discovery. Like you have to know who you are. What are your values? What are your natural strengths and talents? What are you terrible at? What do you hate? What is this? You're the sum of your experiences. So understand kind of what things have gone right and wrong. Because you can't, if you don't know what you're looking for, you're never going to find it. So you have to do the work on yourself. And that's a constant evolution. And it's part of why now I always find some nice light or silver lining when things go wrong, because I know like it's going to be very useful in the future, like as a lesson or whatever. And that just takes screwing up enough to be able to really reframe it as being useful. But that's the point, is that life is just an experiment or a series of mini experiments nonstop. And you got to be learning and really assimilating that knowledge. And then you can define what success actually means to you. And that's like the big problem, is then you hear that a lot, like define your own success, but like you really have to stop and think, like, do I care about like how important is like X amount of money or some type of like status, or like where does my family rank on the hierarchy, or like time with my friends, or whatever. Because if you don't have that criteria set up right and organized right, you're going to just adopt some definition that is like some societal general definition that no one actually ever like brought on as their own, that we've just been kind of brainwashed to like, and the status and kind of the money part of it, it seems to be kind of the general definition that people adopt that is rarely who someone actually is. So that's it. Like the first part, to self-discovery and becoming a self-expert. And then the next step is to start doing the impossible. And I say the impossible, I mean doing like your impossible. You need to slowly show yourself you can do the things that you didn't think you could do, or that other people told you couldn't do. And because when you do that, you start to build confidence, and that confidence then can compound into the rest of your world. I like to start with fitness because that's much more in people's control than most things. Like you can, let's say you show yourself you can lose 20, 30, 50 pounds. Like who's to say you couldn't quit that job or double your sales the next year? Like it gives you this crazy confidence. And I mean, maybe it doesn't have to be something huge. Maybe it's like you feel like you can't really even like jog around the block. So you work up slowly to running a mile or a 5K or 10K. I don't care what it is, but you just need to just prove to yourself that like you're more capable than the world and yourself is giving credit. And the fastest way to do that is to surround yourself with people already doing it. So that's the third part, which is surround yourself with passionate, inspiring people, which we've already talked plenty about. But the doing the impossible thing is a really fun one. And I think to get in that habit, like and with whatever it is, you know, whether it's some type of travel you embark on or pick like a race or a challenge. Like every year I pick a physical challenge that I want to try and check off that years past I never would have thought could have been possible, and just to kind of see what can be done. And like this year, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I used to do a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I was in college and loved it and competed, but I'm way out of my game right now. And I thought it'd be fun to like get back into it, try and compete, and maybe even like try and win a tournament. I'm not in control of being able to win the tournament, but I can show up on a weekly basis in a way that makes me more likely. But the point is, like, I just want to, that's my challenge this year. And last year we signed up for, this was way out of our league, but it was a 50-mile foot race, a good buddy of mine and I. And it was brutal. It was like I've never underestimated something more in my life. We got beat by almost everybody. We came in at mile 40. We were third and fourth to last place and almost got kicked off the course for taking too long. It took 13 hours and 48 minutes.
Like, we don't have time for this.
Yeah, no, they have like a sweeper that comes behind you at a certain pace to like tell you, okay, like you're going too slow. And it was a grind, but it was amazing. I wouldn't have changed a thing. And we got beat by at least a dozen women over like 45 years old. And, you know, I'm 31, consider myself pretty fit, but I mean, it was just great. It just shredded you down to like your core, down to like the felt, and to feel that. And then to like lean into that is a pretty cool feeling. And afterwards, like, well, physically, I could hardly walk, but like mentally you think, my God, okay, like what else could we do here? And now 50 miles wasn't the first thing I checked off. It started with running, I don't know, 2 miles 10 years ago or something, you know, but that doing the impossible is a fun process if you just make that kind of a part of your deal.
That's insane. 50-mile race. And on the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu challenge, I really like that. I actually trained for a few years. And
yeah.
I know what you mean. It's draining. Like, you train and it can wipe out your whole day. It takes out so much in you just with the gi and getting choked out and, you know, fighting. Yeah. It's challenging.
Oh man, it is. It's brutal. And coming back, I mean, it's just crazy how much you lose in terms of, well, both technique, but also your training. Like, even if you've been like running sprints or whatever, nothing compares to just being on the mat. But I love it because you get so present, and it just, I don't know, it's such a fun feeling. So that's cool. I love it. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I certainly do. And back to what you were discussing earlier about doing the impossible. I mean, it sounds exciting. It sounds adventurous. And immediately it's like, you know, we're listening to this, all of us are listening, and it's like, wow, you're like, yeah, I want to do that. And you start thinking of all these ideas, these goals you have, and you're kind of getting really excited. But as soon as that excitement goes away, you're left with fear. It kind of just turns into like, oh my gosh, am I really going to do this? Or you don't really believe that you can do it. So how can guys overcome this fear?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's just be around people who are unbelievably excited about it. And it'll be like, oh my God, this is crazy. These people, like, they're not terrified. They're like, they live for this. And that will be contagious. But also start so small that it's impossible to not make progress. Literally, if you were like, let's say we were talking about running and like start just going around the block or whatever, and like add 50 yards every time or something, like, so that people so often, like, they'll get excited about something they want to do, and then they'll get so excited they'll try and bite off this huge portion of it, and then they get just disenchanted or just like snowplows them because it was like too much or whatever. And so I don't know, if you start unbelievably small, it's not that scary. It usually isn't scary at all, and it's almost impossible to not do it. And that's the goal. I mean, it's like a little trick you can play on yourself, I guess, in a way, but don't go out and, I'm not saying go out and run a marathon tomorrow. I mean, unless that's where you were, but that's not the point, you know? Yeah, right.
Right. Or maybe do a Spartan race.
Yeah, right.
All right. And I see the benefits of, creating your own environment and surrounding yourself with the right people. But when you do, can you give any advice for guys who maybe they're finding these guys, but how can they add value to these guys? Because there's so much, they could be more above, they could be at a higher level of success, quote unquote. But how can guys add value to, you find a group that you want to be a part of, but they're at a higher level than you. What can you do to add value to those people?
Yeah, that's a huge question we get. First of all, people are people. And so it's easy to look at these, let's say, well-known, like famous people or, best-selling authors or whoever, and think that they're like way above you. And like, sure, in certain metrics, they're above you and they're more experienced, whatever, but they still are people who have needs, who want to connect, who want to help, who want to be helped. You just have to be creative enough to find that way to offer that value. And, I remember like a best-selling author friend of mine came to town and was holding a dinner with like 50 people, and I was super nervous, but I knew I had to go, and I wanted to say thank you because it helped me so much in what I was building. And I was thinking, God, what can I do? Like, I'm only gonna have a few minutes with him because there's a lot of people. And I ended up I knew that he was a vegan and he had just moved to town, and my wife and I eat mostly plants as well, and she's a big chef, like has her own site and stuff that she does that with. And so I said, hey, why don't we put together a list of restaurants? And I also knew he was a runner, so I said, let me think of a couple running trails. And when I saw him, I said, hey, thanks for what you're doing. Like, this is amazing. And I just said a few quick things about that, and then said, by the way, like, I know you're new to town. I thought you'd appreciate this. And I just did it because I thought if I was in his shoes, what would I appreciate being new to town? And it ended up blossoming into this awesome relationship. And I didn't expect that from him, but I was just thinking, how could I add some value to this person who's added so much value to me? And I knew there's no way it's going to be on, like, let's say writing. They're a best-selling author. I'm not going to try and help them on their area of expertise, but like, what's my area of expertise? And in this case, it was in one area, it was food in San Francisco, because that was my thing in relation to him who was new to town. So the key is to get very creative and to align your talents and passions with something that they need help with on a timely basis. So ideally, like, for instance, he had just moved to town, so it was much more relevant. Or like, let's say if someone's launching a new product, and like I was launching a new product, and I had someone reach out and say, hey, I'm a copy editor. I love your work. I'd love to help you out. I've edited for these big authors. And I'm like, oh my God, actually, we're going live in 2 weeks. I'd love some help. She's like, yeah, I'll do it for free. And if it works, maybe we could work together in the future. And she just over-delivered on value. It was super time sensitive. I needed it. And she knew enough about what I was doing to deliver that in the right time frame, whatever. And now I work with her nonstop. She's my go-to editor for everything. So that's the key is you have to be creative, know enough about them, know enough about who you are and how to add value in an area that's not their wheelhouse. And then just, you have to show up. Like, a lot of people like wonder why they haven't connected with people, but they haven't like sent letters and sent messages to them, which is the very first step. But the real step is like showing up in the real world. If they're going to be at an event, go to that event. If it's in a different town, it might be worth it to drive or to fly there just to be there in the flesh and blood, because that's how you stand out and become memorable in a sea of a million tweets and Facebook requests and all this stuff. You have to like get through the noise.
All right. Those are some good examples of what you can do to really stand out. And add value to people that are quote unquote on a higher level than you. So thank you. And now, Scott, it's time that we enter the knowledge round. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
For you, the listeners of the Knowledge for Men podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their awesome service. And you know what? Something I've noticed after interviewing hundreds of successful people is that they all read a ton of books. If you want to be successful, you've got to educate yourself. I don't always have time to sit down and read a book, so I personally recommend listening to audiobooks in your car, in the gym, or on the go. You can pick up for free any one of my favorite best-selling books like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, Awaken the Giant Within by Anthony Robbins, Mastery by Robert Greene, Choose Yourself by James Altucher, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, or any other audiobook you want. Audible has over 100,000 titles to choose from. To download your free audiobook today, go to kfmbook.com. Again, that's kfmbook.com for your free audiobook today. Start learning, growing, and becoming the man you want to become now. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
Scott, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling lost or unsure of their purpose?
Just pick something. Go find something that inspires you, or find one person that inspires you, one thing. Go watch a TED Talks are an awesome just habit to build up, just to watch those on a routine basis. You can surround yourself with inspiring people in like your bedroom, which is a start. And then just find one person. Like we wrote an article this week, just find the first step is find one person who inspires you in your town or in your community and in some type of your network, and spend a little time with them, and then build off that and ask who they know who you could spend time with, and just go from there, I think, for the people part. And then there's just so many tools out there for learning about yourself. Just pick one of them. Grab one of the best-selling books on these different topics, or take a StrengthsFinder test. Actually, that might be the number one thing I'd recommend is StrengthsFinder 2.0. We're not affiliated with them at all, but it's like a $10 online assessment. It is crazy powerful. Gives you a 20-page report of your top 5 strengths out of 34, I think, and how they apply to different jobs, to different roles inside of a certain career. And because as it turns out, fulfillment and happiness in day-to-day life and certainly in work, a lot of the science comes back to it being based on how much of your time is spent using your natural talents and strengths. And most people are totally misaligned. They have to spend their time public speaking when they'd rather master a spreadsheet, or something like that. So you ought to align that. StrengthsFinder 2.0 is gold. So dive into that.
All right, and I'm looking at it right on my bookshelf, and I'm like,
Nice.
I shouldn't have put it on the bottom.
and actually, the book's great, but it's mainly just a summary of the strengths. Just take the online assessment. If, let's say, someone listening only had 40 minutes, the return on that 40 minutes, it might be one of the best returns you could ever get.
I'll definitely be putting that in the show notes. And Scott, what was holding you back from becoming the man you are today?
It was, I think, knowing about the difference that I wanted to make in the world. Because I was telling you before, for so long, I was comparing myself to my friends with these different finance jobs and all this stuff, making all this money. And as soon as I got aligned with what I cared about and started really spending time on it, I just realized I just didn't care at all about all that. And so it stopped. If you're scared that you're not keeping up and you think you're not enough based on other people and stuff, it's going to keep you hidden in your corner and in your hole and not inspire you to make that progress. So really honing on what it is, the difference I wanted to make, and then making those incremental steps and finding those people that have kind of done similar things and all that. That broke through everything.
And Scott, can you name a mentor that you've had that has had a large impact on your life? What did he or she say to you?
Let's see. I remember his name is Tim Bliss, and a guy, a mentor of mine from when I was in Santa Barbara at school, and he had a big investment partnership that he was managing and worked with a lot of different businesses. And he just said to have a personal board of directors and to just think about who are the different people in your life who really know you, have experience, and you can come to for candid feedback. And they'll tell you like it is. They'll tell you when you're screwing up, when you're not showing up and being who you are, or when you are. And so that I've just always tried to keep very close. And I have that list of my personal board of directors in different areas. And that's made a tremendous difference, and it's always evolving, and it's been a lot of fun. And over time, you try and see if you can provide be that role for other people as they're coming up as well, because it's definitely a two-way street. And I have to add one other thing that I've realized in the last few years that is probably the most useful single like business concept and maybe life concept I've learned in the last few years is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. He gave a TED Talk that is one of the top, I think 5. And it's simple that the premise is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it's not just about buying, like selling something for dollars, but like buying into an idea and a belief. And I built Live Your Legend purely based on that. We're not building something so people like will follow Scott Dinsmore. People come to Live Your Legend because they also believe in the same things we believe in, that they can make a difference and that they can surround themselves with people that make it possible in this stuff. And so I think about starting with why with pretty much every conversation I have with someone. If you're talking to your spouse, you're talking to a friend, people want to understand why it matters to you. And that's how you can really get people to collaborate with you on things and get a big community behind an idea. So I have to give a shout out to Simon Sinek. I would spend 18 minutes watching his TED Talk. I've seen it at least 15 times, but probably more.
Start With Why is a really great video. I'll put that in the show notes, and yeah, everyone's got to watch that. Well, Scott, I have a scenario for you. Imagine you had 60 seconds to talk to your 20-year-old self. What would you tell him to do and also what not to do?
Oh, God. It's a scary question. It would be to listen to yourself and to explore, to screw things up, to not do things because you're supposed to, but because you actually want to, and to follow excitement. You know, what I'm doing right now is I'm excited about it, I'm super passionate about it, but in 10 years from now, I'm sure it'll be something at least a little bit different, but it'll still leverage who I am. And you follow that path of excitement, kind of like you'd be sailing a boat or something back and forth. And to take experiences really seriously, that it's not just all about building up resumes and job experience, but like life experiences and exploring things and making it like an adventure and just constantly thinking about how you can apply yourself to help others. I think that's where the magic really happens for everybody. So I guess in a sentence, stop following the crowd.
Yeah, there's that quote by Einstein: the one who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd. So very true. And this next question, Scott, will be tough for you as it is for everyone. What are your 3 most influential books and why?
3 most influential books. Yeah, let's see. Well, I mean, The Alchemist, I have 5 copies of The Alchemist sitting on my bookshelf right now. That I named Live Your Legend after that book, actually. It's a very simple book, and it's about someone's pursuit of their personal legend, the work they can't not do, kind of their life's journey. But you never actually get there, but you're always in pursuit of it. So that is unbelievably powerful. You can read it in like 2 hours or 3 hours. How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you could only read one book, I believe that is the book that would make the biggest difference. And it's by Dale Carnegie. It's just a classic. And just how to really connect with people is huge. And like if you were thinking about like career change, I think What Color's Your Parachute has always been a classic. That was the first book that I looked at. Dick Bowles has become a friend who wrote it. It's been a bestseller for like 30 years. That's super powerful. But all-time top ones, I mean, definitely those 2. Oh, you know what? Another one that is really powerful, I'm rereading right now for the 3rd or 4th time, and is Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, and by Robert Cialdini. And it's based on like 20 years of research. And it's fascinating I read it, one, just from a perspective of like, to understand why I get influenced and moved to do the things that I do from like other businesses or people or whatever. And he just came down to like, I think it's 6 core principles. And so it's really useful from a personal perspective, from a business perspective, from everything, and how to do this stuff in like a really genuine and like fair and honest way.
All right, good selection of books there. And what is one underrated characteristic that you believe every man should work on?
Wow. Well, 2 opposite sides of it. One is becoming a really good communicator and an awesome like public speaker. I took Toastmasters for a while. I have a lot to learn, but that, I mean, if, in terms of like moving people and getting people to take action, I mean, being a good communicator. Resonate from Nancy Duarte is an unbelievable resource and book for learning how to give a powerful presentation. She also has a TED Talk. But on the other side of that, which I think it's totally underrated, is listening and hearing people. And I talk about this a lot with people in our community who feel like they're introverted and they feel like there's something wrong with them because they're shy and they don't say much in bigger situations. And what I remind them is that they have the most powerful trait, this ability to hear people for who they are, to listen to their problems and actually kind of just take them on as their own. And because if you can really hear someone for who they are and not just focus on how can I just figure out what to say next, because that's what so many people listen for, is just to figure out how they can interject the next idea of their own, and how to puff themselves up. But if you really hear people, then you can actually help them, and then you can relate to them, and that's how you can build rapport, and that's how you create community and create value for others. So presence and listening.
Yeah, those two, communication and presence and listening, can provide so much transformation in your whole entire social life as well. Well, Scott, let's now dive deep. What is your philosophy on life and success?
Wow. I mean, to spend the time doing the things that excite you with the people you respect and admire, and to be making a difference along the way. I mean, that is the philosophy. And if I had to sum it up into one word, it would be to explore the world, to explore other people, to explore yourself, and just to kind of just constantly embrace that adventure. And because like the adventure of like right now is the only adventure that there is once you kind of distill things down. So explore works pretty well for me.
All right, I'm going to have to drop another quote here because it's highly relevant. And it's 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bullishness, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. Mark Twain. And I mean, that goes well with what you just said. So I had to throw it out. It's on my wall here. I'm just looking right at it. So, and now, Scott, do you have any last parting piece of guidance for the thousands of listeners today?
I mean, parting pieces, that would make it seem like my other pieces weren't useful.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I'm just kidding. So I remember my dad told me, he's my informal chief strategist, and we meet as often as possible. And he said casually a year ago, he said, Scott, the focus is the key to the world. And then kept talking. I said, wait a second, Dad, what'd you say? He's like, yeah. He's like, focus is everything. And I remember since then, I've shut down another business I was working on and gone full in on Live Your Legend, and just realized that focus, when you really laser in on something, the difference you can make is absolutely tremendous. And that, of course, comes with like actually doing something and taking action. It's so easy to listen to stuff like this and hear it and feel like, oh yeah, I get that. That makes sense. But if you don't like get off this call right now and do something like today that like gets you closer based on, let's say, what you learned in this conversation or whatever it was, if you don't adopt that habit of acting on the stuff that you learn, like it's all really for nothing. So just please do something with whatever we talked about today, with just one little thing, if nothing else.
All right, that's going to conclude the knowledge round. And Scott, what's exciting you today? What are you currently working on?
Let's see. One thing that's really been excited lately is that obviously community and surroundings is a big part of what we do. And our biggest flagship course in community is how to connect with anyone. And it's like about how to create those surroundings, both in person and online. But we've taken that to another level and created what we call Live Your Legend Local, where we have different little groups around the world that get together. Our first meetup, there were 150 cities in 48 countries, I think. And we've since been adding countries. That was a couple months ago, of people just getting together, like minds, and helping each other out and sharing ideas, sharing what excites them, what they're having trouble with, so that people have a safe space to make that progress. So our goal is to kind of create the Toastmasters Club of doing inspiring, world-changing work, where Toastmasters is 14,000 clubs in 120 countries around the world or so to help people become better public speakers. We thought we'd love to create something like that for just doing work that matters. So it's a huge endeavor. We have no idea how we're going to fully execute on it. It's in motion. We have a lot of people working on it around the world, from Nigeria to Kuwait to Sydney to New Zealand, whatever, all these places, but we got to sort through that. So it's pretty much a free thing that we offer. We're trying to figure out kind of what the best direction is for it. But that excites me, and really just getting this stuff out on a newer, bigger level. I think we figured out some things that really help people, and now we just want to bring more people community and share that with them, because none of this stuff is useful without the community. That makes up everything. So that's our focus, and not picking up too many projects so that we can stay focused, which is the constant battle for me.
And Scott, can you share a little bit more about the courses that you offer that you've talked a little bit about in this podcast?
Yeah, we have really just two core courses. The first one is Live Off Your Passion, or How to Live Off Your Passion, and it's a 10-week online course. We have its own website and membership, and we have a community as well, and we offer some coaching options through that as well. But it's kind of how to go from through the process of who are you, what excites you, and what are you like excited and passionate about, to then how do we build a career or a business around that. And it's like those two core elements. An even deeper course that we have is the How to Connect with Anyone course, which we only open that a few times a year, whereas Live Up Your Passion is always available. But How to Connect with Anyone is a deeper course. We take 250 people each time we do it, so we can keep it intimate and from around the world. And the first thing we do is place people in mastermind and accountability groups based on their location, their passions, their interests, and in groups of like 4 to 6. So people are like connecting with like-minded people from day one. And then we go through a whole set of module work and in-person interactions. I mean, it's all about getting into the real world and connecting with people and surrounding yourself with those people who really refuse to let you fail. So those are the big ones right now. We're going to do some new things this year. I want to do some much, I guess, simpler things, workshops, I'm calling them, on different topics like that are really core to what people are trying to do. Let's say making the transition out of a job you don't like, or how to launch your first product. And there'll be like live, online live workshops that'll be like a couple hours long with Q&A and then some specific action and stuff. But we want to do a series of those so that we can kind of just cover the different areas that people have really wanted help with. So keep an eye out for that stuff. We haven't launched that yet, but hopefully soon.
And Scott, do you want to go ahead and give yourself a plug so the audience can get in contact with you?
Going to Live Your Legend is probably the best thing. We have our Passionate Work Toolkit, which is a free thing for the people who join our free community. It's you'll see it once you go to Live Your Legend, but it has a bunch of workbooks and tools and stuff that'll help you kind of make some good progress from the start. So hopefully that's useful to you guys.
All right. And Scott, thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, it really means a lot for me to have you on, for you to spend the time to be on the show, because, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I watched your videos, I read your blog, and you were an influence in me quitting my job and going all in with Knowledge for Men. So, man, it's been quite a ride. So thank you.
Well, it's a total honor, Andrew. Seriously, this stuff is fun. It's so cool to hear that the work we've done has at least mildly influenced some of the stuff you're doing and the way you're impacting the world. It's a fun ripple effect. So thank you for having me on.
It's brought us together. Okay.
All right. That's going to wrap up episode 39 with Scott Dinsmore from Live Your Legend. And action item or challenge for you guys today. Get ready. You're going to see more of these. Well, the one that I have for you today is, what's something that you're doing that you know is bad for you? What is that thing that you're doing that you know you got to just let go? And you know that if you did this, that it would get you closer towards your goals, that it would give you a happier life. It would give you a more fulfilling life, whatever it is. What is that thing that's holding you back? What's holding you back? Let that go. Let it go. And move forward. All right, you can keep me up to date with that activity by just giving me an email at andrew@knowledgeformen.com. I want to hear what you're letting go to help you get closer towards your goals.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast show. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of a thriving community of men who want to crush it in all aspects of life. I'm on a mission here to inspire millions of guys, and with your help, we're going to make a dent in the universe. Check out knowledgeformen.com for a ton of free content that's designed to help you live a remarkable life. Again, that's knowledgeformen.com. I hope to see you there. And always remember, 2014 is the official year of the crush, where we take action to get the life we've always dreamed of. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and until next time, let's do it.